Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Egan, and welcome back to Legends Lounge. This is our series where we really honor the future inductees of the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. And tonight we have a really special guest, Scott Brooksbank. Scott is near and dear to my heart. One, because I grew up watching and idolizing his skiing. And then as friends, Scott and I have really hung out a lot together. We traveled the ski show circuit, showing movies and doing demonstrations. And of course, our love for the turn is so united on the snow. And of course, before we get started, we're going to have our executive director of the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame, Justin. Justin, how are we doing today?
Good as always, Dan. Great to be here, and looking forward to another great episode.
Absolutely. And lots happening at the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. A lot of future plans coming together that we're going to get to. But just fill us in on summer activity out there at the hall.
Yeah, looking forward to getting back to live physical events like you wouldn't believe here. We a couple weeks ago just started ticket sales and sign up for our first event back, September 20th, a Monday in Sun Valley. We're doing a combo golf outing at Elkhorn Golf Course and a reception to follow, where we're going to be announcing the class of 2021, believe it or not, already. So we're underway with our election. Our selection committee is actually meeting on Thursday, June 24th, to get the process going and start sifting through the 60 plus people that are vying for a spot in the next class, Dan.
It's pretty amazing always to see all of the people that come in every year to be nominated for U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. It's a big process, and if you make it all the way through, you truly are an honored member of the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. And today we are joined by Scott Brooksbank, who has made it through. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer. He's always been one in my heart. I know that's true. Scott, of course, is from the early days of free dogging, competed in the first organized freestyle event at Waterville Valley, and his career spanned decades, filming with Warren Miller and eventually setting the criteria for what would become the judging criteria for moguls, aerials, and ballet. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Scott Brooksbank.
Good to see you, Dan. Pleasure
Hey,
to be here.
how you doing, my man? What's happening?
Well, it's exciting. I really appreciate having the opportunity to join a cast of people that basically pulled me into the sport just because it was on film, it was in pictures, and I was one of those kids.
You know, Scott, I've skied with you and I've hung out with you quite a bit. Can you just sort of tell us about your love for skiing?
Well, it was interesting. I've always been an athlete, been in organized programs, swimming, diving, trampolining. And there was a day when I basically had to move out of the house. And first thing I thought of when that choice came to me was, I'm going to go to Vail. And I really didn't have a good turn at all. I basically spent the first 2 or 3 years with banged up shins, torn ligaments, bruised Achilles, you name it. And I had a hard time. It was a learning process. But I skied every day. I loved it. And I followed and watched good skiers on a mountain. And I had one short story when I went out skiing one day, and I basically had about 40 minutes to go ski and come back in and do dishes up at Midvale. And while I was out there, I noticed that somebody was on the right-hand side of this run. It was snowing probably about 2 inches an hour, the hardest snow we'd ever seen, because we just had probably, just tons of ice before that. I stopped. Somebody waved their hands and said, I asked him if they thought they were all right. And he said, yeah. And he said, they were looking for skis and stuff like that. And he looked at me and he says, you look like you're doing pretty well yourself. So you mind telling the group here, what you do when you ski powder? And I said, well, I basically turn my left foot to the left. And he said, well, what do you do with your right foot? And I lifted up my leg. It was in a cast from my ankle up to my hip. I hit it 3 times with my pole. And I said, nothing, it's in a cast. And he said, well, would you mind if we followed you back down to the run? And I said, not at all. And I knew who I was in front of. It was the director of the ski school, Horst Abrams. And 30 years later, when I received the application process to be submitted to the Hall of Fame, the first name on the list was Horst Abrams, that has been a longtime member of the Ski Hall of Fame. I wrote a letter immediately that night to Horst telling him of my story. And he knows that I've spoke that story twice to him. That's how I got started. I realized at that point in time, I might have something on my feet.
Hey, one ski's plenty, all right? That's pretty amazing.
That's how it got started.
And of course, I think to really appreciate Scott's skiing, we should watch some of it. Here's some of the clips from his segments, Skiing for Warren Miller.
And a guy in a hurry is Scotty Brooksbank. Days a week for 7 months a year. Just imagine how tired you'd be. Mike ski in one winter. Kind of makes you think about changing your vacation schedule, doesn't it? To do that, of course, you have to change your career. Why not become a ski instructor? You can teach on snow in the winter. 1968, after he won his 3 gold medals in the Olympics. I didn't have the heart to tell McNulty he was wrong, because I was the producer-director on that television series, and we didn't ski anywhere near. Don't worry, I'll get it for you. Sure I will. Coomer, Scotty Brooksbank. The cornice isn't steep like the kitchen wall. It is the kitchen wall. Everywhere the skiers go, my cameraman, Don Brolin, and I get to go first with 50 pounds of camera gear on our back.
So fantastic. I love it. Such a classic style. And
who that was skiing behind me there on the kitchen wall?
who was that?
That was the world famous boot designer maker, Sven Coomer.
All right.
Pulling out some great turns. That was stunning. He's a great skier and a designer.
So, Scotty, when you see that footage, what runs through your head?
The wild clothes we wore, the bright colors, but always is about the turn, enjoying the sun, being on skis. It's it's a motion and an athletic experience. It's just something that once that I felt that I loved that feeling, it was just, I got to go do it everywhere. Find some place to go ski. And that's a lot of times we did that. We'd find places on the sides of the roads that, hey, if we hiked over there, we could get a ski track in there, and people drive by and go, who did that? And we used to do stuff like that, but that's how crazy I was for skiing. I'd put a turn anywhere I could.
Love that. And of course, Scott, you were there for the early days of freestyle skiing. And can you bring us back to some of the early contests and just kind of paint a picture for what the atmosphere was?
It was more about what I think would happen with snowboarding in the very beginning. we just rooted for everybody. We had guys like Bob Boogeyman would come out and ski, and he'd do a slow dog noodle turn. It'd take him probably 2 minutes to get off of one bump. And it didn't quiet the crowd one bit. And it was all part of the show. What was, what points of view, who had the best, interpretation of the ski turn and how long should you be there. And, and it didn't take long, but before athleticism started to creep in there, and the great skiers started to show up. But it attracted everybody that wanted to, associate with making a better turn. Handling the bumps in the Moguls was the big thing. The resorts get groomed now, but back in those days, everything was Moguled up, and and they left them that way. And so I think people just became, we were magnets to the Moguls. So it was a wonderful experience just to, ski on big bumps, even on a flat run. You could ski on small bumps on a really steep run, hardly just skipping the tops. So those kinds of things happen when we were competing. You skied to compete to see who had the best turn, the best lines, the best air, the best enthusiasm. It was always unexpected and it was always spontaneous. Even some of the falls and recoveries were counted as good. And but it took only about 2 years before that. Well, it was a good fall and a good recovery, but let's see you do it without falling. So, it was a natural progression. We just started pushing the limits as hard and fast as possible.
And of course, Justin Scott joins a long a list of honored members there at the museum that were at the start of free dogging, and it really captures the spirit of the 70s.
Yeah, it really does. And a few years back, if you remember, Dan, we did I think it was Phil Sifferman and Dave Fuller orchestrated most of it and actually commentated, but we reenacted a ski ballet competition. And I had heard a lot about it, and I heard the stories, and I talked to people like John Clendenin and Scotty, Marion Post, some of the great ballet stars back then, and I just always imagined what it would be like to watch one of these things. And when they did it there in Squaw, and we're going to be doing it again, by the way, in Sun Valley, when we reenacted that thing, it really felt like I had time warped back. And same thing when I hear Scott talking about the natural progression of the sport and really creating something from pretty much people out playing in the snow is just insanely remarkable. And speaking of Sven Kummer, by the way, Scotty, he's one of those current people vying for honor membership. He's been nominated to the hall. So yeah, just a small community, and great to see people like you being recognized for
man that's done it all as
making it happen. Yeah.
So Scott, when you think about it, and your professional career starts to take off, we have some of the photographs of you in ads and doing some of your ballet. And, as your career starts to take off, you're getting recognized, probably making a little bit of money. How did things change?
Well, I moved around a little bit, but I planned myself in Salt Lake City, and it was easy to fly out of Salt Lake City and drive out of Salt Lake City. And it was try to stay on snow 300 days a year. And we were able to do that. I went to where the snow was, whether it be on a glacier in Europe or stay here, Mount Hood. You could do it. Eventually, you just fill up your days with different things. The pushing the sport was also part of riding with it. And you rode along with the guys that you competed with, and we coached each other, we trained each other, we envisioned how the competition should be run, how to judge, what to look for, how many events should we have? Should we evolve the events? Should we change some of the expectations of the athletes? Should we make the courses longer or heavier, more demanding? It was just something that just came out.
And of course, you had quite a reputation as a competitor. Very competitive. And do you want to sort of describe your competitive nature and how you would approach these competitions?
We were always with media and always under the watchful eye of, the good and the bad of the sport. So, and watchdogging that, we wanted to make sure that, you know, it was presented on film and on television with, you know, really a journalistic point of view, honest integrity. And so one of the things that kind of kept pushing it into the middle of the room and became the elephant was the judging. And judging was always sort of the last minute thing. And, you know, we didn't get the qualified people we'd like to have had. So finally, after a frustrating year of some of those mishaps in 1974, I believe, Mark Stigemeyer and I got together and decided that we'd hold a judges clinic. And in that judges clinic, we invited any and all to come and put our heads together in terms about how to judge ballet skiing, how to judge competition for moguls. Do we think about dual moguls? How do we judge for a gradient system from a degree of difficulty for aerials, easiest to hardest? What was being done? Who could do them? Those are the things that were really biting at our sport and limiting, basically, you know, I guess for the ability for the true athletes to show, to come through. And we pulled off we managed and advertised a judges clinic. We probably had about 25 people come. A couple competitors also showed. And we put our heads together and we came out with basically sort of a handbook of freestyle skiers of America's, you know, interpretation of rules and competition, how to live by.
And I was wondering, when you first see moguls as an Olympic sport in Calgary, what was going through your mind?
I was a director of freestyle skiing at Sunday River that winter, and we had 65 kids in my living room floor laying on top of each other, eating popcorn and celebrating and standing up and screaming and just a hoot and a holler. And it was probably the most, I don't know, satisfying moments to see that not only was it a gold medal sport, but we were doing it. It was organized and it was already, and I was involved in the program. I was very fortunate to be the director that year and inaugurate a program at Sunday River.
I remember when we first came back east, and seeing Scott Brooksbank at Sunday River was a treat for many, many people. But part of that move was the sort of the Legends of Freestyle tour, and how that kind of came back. It's one of the great revival tours ever to hit the ski industry. How did that come about, and what did it mean to you to be honored in that way?
Well, it came about with Dave and Jake Moe. They were the editors and owners of Powder magazine, and they inaugurated the very first one in Bear Valley several years before. And there was just, I believe, just 4 of us competed. And it was such a good idea that they actually were able to sell the idea to Les Otten, the owner of Sunday River, and he used it as a marketing splash for the last week of Sunday River's open, you know, skiing season. And they invited 8 of us. And then the next year they invited 16. And then the next year after that, they had a round of 130 amateurs. So it was the marketing sensation for the back East Coast. It was a lot of fun. We got to appear every year. It was, you know, fun to have little grudge matches and show off some of our, you know, old age skills.
You know, as a child, I went and watched a lot of Warren Miller ski films, and you were the dominant skier of the time. You know, I think that you ushered in the decades of professional skiing and making a living through Warren Miller and in front of his lens. You knew Warren quite well. What was that experience like, hanging out with Warren and being in so many of his films?
Well, that's very kind of you to say that, Dan. He happened to be a man that understood the value of the image on film. I was attracted to it like a magnet, almost through to a point of addiction. I just really appreciated anytime that I saw anybody skiing on film, and the effort that it took for someone like Warren to follow through with his conviction and present a film every year and make it dry and light and witty as he did. I appreciated that, and it kept me wanting to be involved in the sport when I was a terrible stem Christie skier. You know, I skied in the back of the boot and I skied in the back of the tail of the ski for quite a few years. And I really wanted to you know, be a part of this sport just because I wanted to do it. I didn't know that I was going to be doing it for so long and competing and skiing and shaking hands with Warren Miller and signing up on different trips to Europe and New Zealand. Those just came because I just loved the sport.
And of course, Justin, back there in the Hall of Fame, there's quite a collection of all of Warren's films. I know I was blown away when I saw it. It's really amazing when you have somebody like Scott Brooksbank, who's a major part of that library now as part of the Hall of Fame.
It's great, Dan. We've cataloged every one. I'm actually in the library and film archive room when I do these interviews, and the amount of film that was shot is crazy. You know, when you look at the stats, I think I heard something like 70 hours of filming to make, you know, a 70-minute film or whatever it is. It's crazy to think, like Scott said, about the effort it took to get the equipment, get the vantage point, get to where you need to be, and then have the great skiers like you guys able to make it come to life there.
One thing about Warren is he appreciated the beauty of the place, and he captured it so well through the lens. And he made me, and I'm assuming yourself, feel like an artist. Did you feel like skiing was your art form at the time?
Well, it came through, yes, it did. It came through visual images too. Ski magazines, the photographs, still images, you know, last a lot longer. Some of this video footage I haven't seen since they was probably released back in the 70s. But I have this photograph here at home that you're looking at now. It reminds me of just the attraction of being able to, well, if you can do it on a trampoline, or if you see someone do it in the water, can it be done on skis? And what's it like when you do it on skis? Because it is just absolutely a thrilling experience. It's like an F1 ride. It's like jumping out of a plane. It's all of those. And it's also all the other quiet things that you think you want to fulfill in your life. It's a fulfilling challenge.
I know that as an artist yourself, I was so honored when you did the video jacket for my first film, Extreme Dream. Beautiful painting. Tell us about the artwork that you've done over the years and how you morphed into that as a career.
I started. I actually lost a brother through cancer and got involved in my family business, and decided that I didn't really want to be out in bars, and I wanted to learn how to paint. And I got asked to do a Miller segment and go to Snowbird. And that was a year that Bill Bass had brought back a bunch of artwork from around the world, including a massive China treasures. And we had 77 inches, and we couldn't ski. We were interlodged. I picked up a pen and pencil at the drugstore there in the hotel, and I drew for about 4 days. And every day I'd call Gary Nate, and I'd tell him, well, no, it doesn't look like today. And he'd drive back home all the way from the bottom of the canyon back up to Ogden and back, and he'd come back the next day and he'd call again, and nothing had happened. I came home, I had a lot of drawings and sketches, and I asked a friend of mine who was an artist, and I said, should I paint, oil, watercolor, draw, what should I do? And he said, you probably should do really well with pastel, because you can start a project, get a phone call, go skiing, and come back and finish it a year later. And that's how I started. I stayed out of the bars, I started painting. And then slowly but surely, right out of nowhere, someone said, I want you to do our Christmas card, and I'll pay you $350 for it. I didn't solicit it, they asked, and I realized, well, that was another source of income. And lo and behold, I was learning and getting paid at the same time. So I kept that with me. And I painted, while I was still doing some ski directing work at North Star in California. And I took a bunch of my stuff to get framed. And one thing led to another. I had an art show, and I was doing it full time.
That's awesome, Scott. No, I love your painting, and it's great to have another platform to express yourself on. You skied with so many great people from the early days on the tour to different skiers around the world in the movies. Wondering, who are some of your favorite skiers to ski with?
It's a very interesting story. I've skied with people like Jean-Claude Keely, Andy Mill, Steve Benoose, doing work on segments. I've skied with you, Dan. We've done some great stuff. I came to one of your camps in Squaw. That was a fun experience. The way that I met Dick, I met Dick Barrymore, and as a result of winning the 75 World Championships, and was over in Zermatt, and they were doing a series of films for K2 the following year, and they wanted me to sign a contract. and John Kokili was there. And I actually literally went up to him and asked him, I said, do you think I should sign, or what should I do? And he said, you're a competitor. And about 4 days later, after hemming and hawing, I signed with Rosignol. And then lo and behold, after that, I found out that Rosignol agreed that I could come to any USA training camp because Herman Goldner was there. So I've skied with Herman Goldner.
You know, you were so natural in the air as a skier with your aerials. You're amazing with the ballet, and of course, so quick-footed with the bumps. But, you know, as our career progresses, you know, we end up doing a lot of crazy things. And in the films, you jumped over crevasses and off, you know, skied through the Chiracs, and you jumped out of the tram at Snowbird, and I think more than once. You want to tell us that story?
Well, the first time was pretty light. Nobody asked to jump out of the tram. We just, as a group of skiers and on behalf of Warren Miller, Snowbird said, sure, that'd be great, as long as they could get Snowbird logo on the tram in the picture. So they stopped the tram up above the first tower one day when we had probably about 3.5 feet of snow. We brought in a shovel, put it in the tram, and pushed and slid out and carried a good 80-footer. That was a lot of fun. And a couple of us did that. Frankie Bear went out on his skis and did a front flip. And even though we all did it, I think probably only a couple seconds ended up on the film that year, but it was fun. Another time I did it at the top of the Snowbird tram at the top tower with Willie Bogner. And there was a girl that's supposed to ski underneath, and we were supposed to play a scene where we would catch them or chase them. And of course, they gave the call to go out of the tram too early, and two of us went out, and one in front, and I came right down on the tails of the skis and the girl below. And fortunately, nobody was hurt, nobody injured, and the girl didn't even know I landed on her skis. But that's the last time I'm going to jump out of any tram.
So amazing to have those sorts of experiences. And I love it. As simple as just asking the tram operator to stop so you could jump out. Things that just don't happen today.
He actually asked me, is this a good spot, or you want to go up a little bit further? The further you would go up, the bigger the jump. So, you know, there was some testing going on there. I'd look at Gary'd look at me, the tram operator go, yeah, let's go up.
A little higher.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm itching to see Scott ski a little bit more. Let's watch another clip.
Here, the most valuable thing to take on a vacation is a shovel and a small boy to dig your car out after the snowplow buries it. Skiers like Scotty Brooksbank stay in shape all summer riding bicycles. My camera... in Scott's Brow. Switzerland. Here in the Arlberg, one lift passes. In Zures, there's an instructor I know who learned to ski back in 1930. He still teaches here every winter. I'm amazed at the youthful sparkle that still burns brightly in his eyes after 50 years. His skiing is fantastic. his English terrible. But as he watched us film these Wunder kids from Idaho and Utah rip up his beloved mountains, he said, and I quote, "Self under the influence of the sun, the snow, and their many different moods." He then went on to say, "It's no wonder I've been able to stay young because I've skied and taught here for over 50 years. Most of us have a long time to go before we've skied 50 years. But it doesn't matter how long we've skied because each moment, each run, and each day is better than the last. The only thing that really matters is thinking up a new excuse the boss hasn't heard."
Scotty, what powder? I mean, come on. That's like, blower over the head.
You know what? The 71 ratio for Warren Miller is true. That footage has to be archive footage. I don't know if it ever made it in the film because he was so selective and so precise on what he was going to show. But those are major segments that I can't even remember, but I do remember the resorts. But they have to be in his archive. I can't imagine they were in film. That me skiing is probably, I was surprised it's that much.
You own the big silver screen, Scott, and
Wow.
it's so beautiful to watch the straight ski, the pole plant, and the snappy turn. What's that make you think when you see that?
Oh, well, it made me think that I must have had faster feet than I always thought, and I must have been thinking that way all the time. I got to be faster.
Scott, what a beautiful long career. I mean, so much you accomplished on so many different levels. I'm wondering if what you're most proud of.
I just think the inspiration that I received, passing it on, or the gift of what our sport is for the other skiers, watching the Olympics and dual moguls, watching mogul competition at this level of what they do off axis air. My goodness, it's awe-inspiring for me. I mean, I've wanted to stay in good shape because of that. That's kind of the effect on that. I've modeled my life around the fact that I was that active. I appreciate the people that are in the sport. I admire them for following it, participating it, pushing it. It's a very humbling experience now to see it.
Just in this winter, we'll be inducting Scott Brooksbank into the honored halls of the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. It's going to be quite a special event.
Yeah, we're really excited, as I said earlier, Dan, to bring back live events starting this fall, and then work our way into the first ever attempt at doing both an East and West Coast induction in the same year. I'm really excited to be in Sun Valley, of course, picking up right where the pandemic kind of slammed the door on us with the exact same event, and add a couple additional members of the class of 2020 to the mix to be honored in Sun Valley on March 26th, 2022. And then 3 weeks prior to that, at in your neck of the woods there, Bretton Woods, Mount Washington, we'll be having another similar event inducting a lot of the folks in the class from the East. So couldn't be more excited. As I said earlier, September is going to be an announcement of all that, as well as the class that we're inducting this summer. So congrats, Scott. We're super excited. It's so great to see you and be back face to face, at least digitally here.
You're very kind. I appreciate it. It's great to be with you and share some of these just mind-blowing visual experiences.
Of course, if you make it to one of the inductions at Bretton Woods or Sun Valley this upcoming winter, you get to ski with the greats like Scott Brooksbank. Scott, it's an honor for me always to call you a friend. I look forward to skiing with you and being with you in person at your induction. Thanks so much for joining us right here on the Legends Lounge.